I never expected rocks to be such a pain to paint in watercolor. You'd think it'd be pretty easy, but it's not. So I'm going to keep doing it until I'm really good at it. I did watch a few watercolor rock painting videos before I did this, and I have a whole bunch more saved that I still need to get into. But one of my favorites so far has been one by Paul Clark that I'm going to put up on the screen because I think you should all go check him out. He's a really cool guy and he's a really good painter, and he's really enjoyable to watch. I'm also going to really quickly share some of the rocks that I've been looking at so you kind of know where my head's at when I have like a goal in mind with what I want my own rocks to look like. Found these on Pinterest, and anytime I try to imagine what my ideal rock is like in my mind, these tend to always be what come up first. I just really like how the light hits these, how it has like a real sense of light and shape. It's like you could really feel every nook and cranny on this. Like if you imagine your hand running over these, but they're definitely not overpainted. They don't look really tight. They look kind of effortless, but you can tell none of the brush strokes are arbitrary. I want that. And then in these rocks, I just really, really like how they use color, which I didn't really focus that hard on this time around, but next time I will. Okay, so on the one side of this paper, I did 9 rocks, and then on the other side, I did 9 more rocks, and I changed brush with every row because I have a bad habit of just going to the same few brushes. I think we all do that, and I need to branch out because you need to compare what brush works best for what you're painting and not just stay in your comfort zone. So the first brush is one of those bamboo, I guess you'd consider it a mop brush. I use these for glazing and ceramics a lot, but I never paint with them. I like the tip you can get on these, but I did not like how there's no resistance to the bristles. You know, when you load it up with water and paint and then you press on your surface, the brush just kind of bends and stays there. And there's something about that I didn't like, but they do hold a fair amount of water, which is what you want in a watercolor brush. This took some getting used to, though. I don't really like it. I would probably rather use these for like background washes or something like that. I don't know. This isn't supposed to be a rock painting tutorial, so I'm not going to show every single step of every rock that I painted. This would be like 2 hours long if I did that anyway. But I think there's value in showing yourself figuring something out and then sharing what you've learned along the way. And I don't think enough people realize how important it is to do something over and over and over again when you're learning. It's really easy to paint something like a portrait or landscape or whatever and be, either be happy with it or not be happy with it, but then move on to something else completely different and paint that. I think you're going to find a lot more improvement if you paint what you want to paint and then you paint it again, the entire scene, and then you paint it again, the entire thing over and over again. There's been several times now where I've painted a particular landscape more than once, and I feel like I get a lot of value out of doing that, learning-wise, but it is a little easier to do one tiny subject at a time like rocks, so here we are. I did 1 layer at a time per row, and then I would move on to the second row so that they all had time to dry before I went back and added another layer of color. The second brush I use is this angle brush, which I ended up really liking the results of, but it feels awkward in my hand to hold, like I'm not used to how to maneuver it. So in the moment while I'm painting it, all I can think about is how much I kind of hate using that angle brush, but in the long run it actually looked really good. But I do think my biggest mistake with this side of the paper is that I am being kind of arbitrary. Like I'm not really thinking very hard about exactly what little nooks and crannies and shapes that I want. I'm kind of just slapping it on there. I tend to get too caught up in wanting everything to be loose and kind of feeling like that means that I need to paint fast, which is obviously not the case, but it's hard to remember that in the moment. So thankfully that's what practice is for. I didn't take any kind of note on like what sizes and exact brands the brushes that I'm using are for this, so I'm sorry if you want to know like exactly what size and whatnot. Most of them are kind of worn off anyway, so then I can't even see the numbers. But I don't think it matters so much because when you're practicing at home, like you're gonna want to figure out exactly what works for you, and it's not gonna be the same thing that works for me. So just play with everything you have, and even when you hate the feel of the brush, maybe you just need to get used to it and not be so limiting to yourself. And I say that as someone who is guilty. There are 2 things that were very unexpected for me to discover after making this video. And the first one is how useful it was to go back and watch myself paint these stupid rocks. It made it so much easier to notice things that I know I want to do differently the next time. And even if I noticed something I want to do differently while I was painting, like most of that I kind of just forget, right? You tell yourself you will remember, but you will not. So having it recorded and watching it back was like a really good reminder of the things that I would have just forgotten later, and a really good way to notice things that I did not notice the first time. So yeah, you might want to consider recording yourself painting something. You don't have to post it anywhere. You can delete it as soon as you're done watching it, and I bet you noticed something that you did not notice while you were in the moment. Speaking of not noticing things until you watch it back, I waited a really long time to start that third row, and I have no idea why. I tried a technique with this third row that I see a lot of other watercolor people do, and that is to use a plastic card to move paint around, and it gives you some really cool texture, but I have yet to master it, or even novice it for that matter. I've gotten fun results with it on other paintings before, but this was not one of those times. So you just take an old credit card or a gift card. You don't have to cut it up, but I like to have a smaller size. And when you scrape back paint with it, you can get kind of cool textures, and a lot of people do it with rocks. You have to do it at a very specific time when the paint is not too wet still, but not too dry. I'm still figuring that out too. When it's done well, it really, really works. So I'm kind of determined to get really good at it. I think the paint was way too dry to do it with on those first two. On this third one, it's almost too wet, but that seemed to work a little better. I mean, I got a little bit better results on this third rock than the first two. That scrape right there. That's a good scrape. The paint must have been the perfect consistency when I did. That one scrape is really great. So I can tell I'm being less arbitrary now than I was earlier, but the thing that I think I messed up the most on this side of the paper is making things way too dark. Like I just keep going back and going back and going back, and then there's no good highlights on anything, and it kind of just makes all the shape disappear. You can't really see or feel, so to speak, like nooks and crannies. I also didn't give a whole lot of thought to the direction of light. Everything's kind of just like a top-down light source instead of being directional at all. Everything I paint is high noon. But these are all things that I will remember the next time I do this. And I am going to do another one of these, maybe like a part 2 or part 20. Am I good at rocks yet? I don't know. Yeah, see, I'm adding way too much almost black color to this poor rock. And that's okay, because now I know for next time. Speaking of knowing better for next time, that rock to the right of the one that I'm overpainting right now, it looks great. I did not notice at the time of painting, but watching back, I'm really sad because I just ruin it. I just go in with the dark color, and I get all crazy with it, and I overpaint and I overthink it. Look at it. It was so good. Sad day, Rock. I'm so sorry, Rock. I ruined you. I will never forget what you used to be. Still not giving up with the card, but I'm pretty sure that I tore the paper a little bit on this one because I just wouldn't let it go. Just kept trying to make it look right. And trying. And trying. I'm adding way too much dark on this one, but overall this one actually turned out the best of the 3 on the bottom. It's not too bad. I think these look okay how they are, and then I just keep going, like I said, and adding more and more dark where I thought I needed even more dark values in the rocks. If I had just went in with really thin touches of black where I wanted a really dark shadow, I could have called these done, and they would look okay. Like, they're not bad rocks, please don't get me wrong. They're fine. They're just not what I envisioned, and I want to get better, so that's what self-critique is for. But I remember not being happy with them at the time and thinking maybe I can fix them, so I just keep going in with darker and darker and darker color, and then by the end of it, they all kind of look like they're lost into some dark forest somewhere. I'm still sad about that rock. Don't get me wrong, your girl loves a dark forest, but it's not what I was going for. Anyway, I'm going to speed this up so we can evaluate and then move on to the other side, where I learn a very obvious lesson. Okay, final verdict on the first 9 rocks. How do we feel? I hated the mushiness of the mop brush, but the rocks it made aren't too bad. I really don't think it's the brush for me in this case, though. I do like that third rock. I like the colors, even though it's obviously way too dark, but I like the camouflage feel to it and nice colors. The angle brush feels a little awkward, but it gave me the best results, in my opinion, so far. So I'm going to keep messing with the angle brush, and maybe I'll just get better at it. I like the colors in this row, and that is it. It is definitely my least favorite. And don't pretend like you don't know what that looks like. It's doo-doo, baby. It's like a realistic interpretation of the poop emoji. I guess this one's okay, it's just a little dark. I know I could have went back in with some white gouache and maybe made some of these look a little bit better, but that kind of defeated the purpose of this exercise, so maybe next time. I had a much easier time getting through the second side because I sketched them out first. Wow, what a revelation! It's almost as if planning something first makes it easier? No way. But seriously, this is one of those times where your brain knows a thing, but for some reason wants to forget that thing temporarily. But in this case, I'm kind of glad that I forgot, because now you can see the difference between the two. And honestly, most of the time when I'm painting something, I don't really sketch that much of it out first. I might mark a few key areas and where I want the placement of them to be, and that's about it. So I think this just kind of proves that I should probably rethink that. I think it's one part impatience, and then the other part is just caring way too much about pencil lines showing when I really shouldn't. They rarely ever do, and when they do, it's not really that big a deal anyway. Sometimes it kind of looks cool. It also forces you to slow down and think about what you're doing just a little bit so that your marks are not as arbitrary. On this side, I use a cat's tongue brush. This one's from a Christy Rice set that I got a while back. She has really good videos on here. You should check her out. Then I used another angle brush, but this one is a little shorter, so maybe it will feel a little bit better to use, like I have more control. And this one is a dagger brush from that same Christy Rice set. I couldn't get the plastic off of the tip. And some tissue to blot back and create texture, which would have served me way better on the other side. After that first rock, I tried to make it a point to leave more white on the page for better highlights. I just forgot to on that first one, like you do. But I still didn't worry about a very directional light. It's still kind of like a top-down light situation for the most part. But I really do like this cat's tongue brush. I don't know why it's called a cat's tongue brush. It doesn't look anything like a cat's tongue. But I like the control that I have with that very fine tip, but I can still get really wide marks if I want to with it. It's a very handy brush. I also decided to put a bit of a background on the last 3 rocks in every row, because that's a little bit more realistic, right, to how you would be painting anyway. And it kind of just makes your highlights pop a little bit more too. I did feel better with the smaller angle brush. I felt like I had a little bit more control. But I think another part of that too is obviously like how big your painting is. These are just small rocks, so obviously a smaller angle brush is going to be more helpful. But if this was a really big painting, I'm definitely going to want to grab the bigger one, right? Probably had a lot to do with why my rocks on the other side were a little bit harder to deal with the angle brush. The dagger brush kind of gave me the best of both worlds, which is good to know because I definitely don't use this brush enough. And it's not one I would gravitate towards if I know I'm going to paint some rocks. I probably wouldn't think to pick this one up first, but I probably will now. I think it was my favorite. Also, I think this rock is off to a really good start. I can't remember if I fuck it up or not. I probably do. I do know I overdid the darks on this side too. Not as bad as the other side, but the tissue does help and in a few instances kind of pull it back, so I tried. I also really like the shape of this rock. This rock looks like a busted stormtrooper helmet. I know not everybody likes when people speed up their videos like this, but I had to edit down over 2.5 hours of footage, so it's already still a long video, even with all the edits. But I promise in the future I will have lots of videos where I'm not speeding through things, and if you just like to watch people paint, then I'll have videos like that too. I liked being able to use the edge of this brush for like more curves if I don't want a completely straight line. It's a little different than other dagger brushes. Most dagger brushes come to a point a lot more quickly. They don't have like that sort of curve on them. It really makes it versatile. I'm glad that Miss Christy Rice designed this brush this way. She did good. She knows what she's doing. Not sponsored, bought with my own money. I've not used like a typical dagger brush yet though, so I need to get one of those in the near future and see what I would use that one for. Here's a spot where that tissue really came in handy to get rid of darks that are way too dark. That doesn't stop me from overpainting later though. The tip of this brush was really good for trying to put in like little cracked details and stuff like that on the rock. Although that's really easy to overdo too. But I think when you do it just enough, it really helps. Really helps sell the rockiness of the rock. I think this is where I realized I didn't really have any mid-tones. Everything was either really light or getting really dark. So I kind of went back and tried to add some. The rocks on this side are mostly just gray because I wasn't really paying too much attention to color. I was just using what was left in my pan. But I like the shadow color I used in that one. I'm pretty sure it's Schmika Tundra Violet. It's a nice color. Pretty sure I'm about to cover it all up. Good job. Seeing the paint bleed out like that into the wetter areas of the paper, though, is like really satisfying. I really want to try taking advantage of that in the next set of rocks that I paint. I feel like you could get some really unique and good results just letting the paint do what it does, which is always the best advice for watercolor. Like, just lay it down and let it do what it wants, but it's really hard to listen to that advice. I really like the more violet tones of the shadows that I'm laying down in there. That's another thing I didn't notice the first time that I was doing this, but it looks nice. It's fun. So I just keep laying more and more dark into this, and I think if I had let that sit where it's at right there, and just a little bit of strong, very dark details, it would have been like really good. Like, I would have been super happy with that. But hindsight, what are you gonna do? All you can do is do it again. It's called practice. That's what we're doing here. Decided to throw a little shadow under these, even though I don't think the shadow's accurate considering the direction of the light on the rocks, but that's okay. It really wasn't accurate on this one, so I had to improvise and change it last minute. I worked it out. It's fine. It's okay, guys. Alright, let's see. I feel better about these, but let's take a look. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. There's still a lot of way too much contrast in these, but overall, I think they did okay. I definitely think there's improvement on this side versus the first side. Still really like the shape of this rock. No one sits like this rock sits. You rock. So, next time I do this, what are my takeaways? What do I want to do better? I want to focus on the direction of light. Maybe they'll all have nice shadows under them next time that match the direction of the sun. I want to try to think about color more, have some fun with that. And I want my value scale to be a little bit better. Everything's really bright or really dark, so I need some more midtones and to take it easy on the freaking shadows. These rocks are fine, so don't get me wrong. I'm not just totally talking shit about myself. I just want to get better. Let me know what you think. What's your favorite rock? Front page 1 through 9? Back page 1 through 9? Is it the doo-doo rock? It's the doo-doo rock, isn't it? It doesn't matter what your least favorite work is of anything you make, somebody out there will see it and they will fucking love it. Anyways, little bonus here at the end for you, but I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!